Okay, the next one is a little bit more turgid here.
Now, these are all on Harry Bialy's.
No. Just the
Oh.
ones that I mentioned.
Oh,
The tourmaline, which was about the dawn, and the fire one, the Buddha fire sermon, and the one that was called the Veil of Isis. Just so for those three.
Is this last one in French?
Is this last one in French?
In French.
We could arrange to get it in French.
Can we put it in? No, it isn't. It's supposed to be in a book that I will publish as soon as I finished my InDesign course, called From Mimir's Head. And there's these three. Okay, this is a poem that I wrote it because I was having a stroke during it. It's called Stroke. 9/16 to 21, 2001. I had a stroke 2 days before 9/11. And this is a poem that I wrote as soon as I was able over the next few days. The sections are named by different inks that I was using to scribble on pieces of paper and red. Black ink. Fantastic tangle of minatory tubes, subject to pressures of mind. Tensions and distensions of a world release, radical interrupts in chaos itself. Strike one. And the eyeball seems to bugle from its socket, and images slide away in double deficit. When will the hammer fall a second time? What range of world elided or eliminated outright? Mind falls into world, world launches missiles back at mind. The towers of ecstasy hoard all being they can, as if being were substance and measured thereby. This word ecstasy is it means like ordinary sense of existence. From extant, yes. The towers of ecstasy hoard all the being they can, as if being was substance and measured thereby. There is a little panel in the intellect whose rotating dials and levers measure ecstasy, and another darker panel back of that where being's ranges and categories are decided. The ghost without a hand can turn these dials, the one by measure ruled and bred, the other by a kind of absolute dead reckoning, moved toward world or away, back to that which feeling searches for home. An open radiance watching through the meshes of thought and world, but spaced by love, to reach the spaces in all other beings and lead them home. Blue ink. Murky liquid looked at long, until the mud wall's small gleams intensify, triangles of silver hot to the mind burned by sharp edges of the light. Draw it up from the little glimmer, until brightness hiding in the tiny gleams burn the mind that draws it up and out. How can light burn the mind? But the mind pulled it out of itself, straining its own possibility, that's how. Until major lesions streak the thought flesh. The mind's own edge alarming its right to be light. Inside itself, the mind as light is sharp as diamond, tough and ever growing harder and more bright. The clenching intellect, the riveting intensity, the keenness, wounds the possibility thereof, until all is edge and keenness. And the teeming feral darkness of the gold, wherefrom that brightness first took gleam, falls back into itself and seems no more. When mind was parked as parcels mixed in murky liquid swirling indistinct from element and muddy textured wall before all face, appearances were flat as they were. No lightnings crashed the ordinary. The originary groaned with debile process. Sparks adhered to resins. Aged vessels sat on aging ledges. Then, river of tetrahedrons flowing from a point, gold and silver alternate, bordered by triangles of silver and gold, river of cuboids, intensifications of themselves, coherent blotches of light in turbulent darkness. Writing is violence. It draws from turbulent blackness cuboids of light, checkerboard swatches of intensity, edging out absence, the field of loud I am that grows ever more distinct, trumpeting edgeless edge and will not die. Ready. Whence this incursion on the visible field, this incisive oval of geometrical light that scares me with the mad distress of the origin, as if I could see thereby the lesion itself, the tear in the tiny tangle of vessel and tissue, a singular violence distressed from the physical object of myself, the thought of the tangle in which it is posed by thought itself, invisible thought of selfhood, hyperspatial to the tear and to its terrible ovoid incursion into its own thought flesh. From what but the action itself, enunciated now as a vibrating inset of an order unintelligible to the object it disturbs, as if the I itself were incised in its intuition of the hyperspace of its occurrence, were inscribed in a vicious act that is no act but a thing from that other zone where terrors spring. Thus I must die to heal the lesion of its own increasing clarification. The afterspace that includes its violent incursion returned to the space before all violence began. Thick ink. Words without purpose, the embarrassment of apparently real contingencies, asleep on the cool embankment, now ascend to highest rank. The empty, the clarity, the breath at home with the bodily meshes and hope that happens to be breathing in. The largesse at large in the tangle of cause and consequence, or purpose and embarrassment. Contingencies, the meshes of the snare, the alphabet of contingency scrambled, so the noise of speech noise, you can't get out of the coil of speech noise, and the mind that eggs it on, turning about its axis and attempting to say the state it wants to have and be, wanting to think out with mind brush and mortar and pestle of intellect the possible rank, impossible and rank, the gargoyles leaping from the forehead, the bouncers and the barkeeps locked up with the brawlers in the brawl. If I knew it, why not get on a bus and go without delay to the city beyond concomitants, the luminous room in the hull of the ship of truth, the moon man aloof in the saddle, shining, bounteous grace rays down hospital hallways, sneaking glances and casting beams into desperate units where groans and miseries turn on their axes and the minds of medics are disjoined from the bodies they've wired. Why not get in the cab of the big truck in furious exodus to comport oneself home on the Blue Night Highway? No ink. Strings and nerves and roadways bundled in a tangle, snakes and phosphorescent insects, phos, the remembrance of light, when things leapt up from themselves long ago, in the dawn of Ta'anta, Aeon, Esti, is the singular rife orb, released from the tangle, mind saddled on being, without digression or part, galloping dayward. Justing. A ball of tangled yarn, or nerves or vessels, themselves the course and the message, the singular message of self-luminous orb, Tile Chenpo, totality, coursing through each span. The orb returns to the tangle, knotted yarns, impossible story, anomalous, time to burst, function to break down, the furious space between the crossing strands, that things are ripped out of their nature when the message explodes in the channel. The mindful light of the space through which it courses breaks into the coursing.